All right, we have just about made it. We just finished our very last classroom meeting of the semester, and we are rapidly approaching our final deadline. So let me give you a little bit of housekeeping, but mostly what I want to do in this video is congratulate you on making it through the semester. You did a hard thing, and that's worth celebrating. Now, this was intended to be an intro class for people who may or may not have any background in computer programming, so it probably will feel a little muddy and unclear, but that's just you learning. You wouldn't learn English in 15 weeks. It's something that we keep getting better at as we use it. Likewise with R. So, where do we go from here? Make stuff. Definitely take advantage of DataCamp while we still have access to the premium membership. But don't get caught in what's called tutorial hell. It's really easy to kind of do one tutorial after another, but making something your own is difficult. Now, it might not be that you ever need to make anything with R from scratch. Maybe you only ever need to use R to run some regressions and to clean some data and make some visualizations. But you do have access to this new skill, this new superpower, that even if you're not using it for something that's practical, can still be really invigorating, can be really, it feels good to make stuff. And there's all kinds of cool stuff that we can make with R. So, what to look for, where to go from here? Obviously, YouTube is filled with a million excellent resources, and I'm going to share just a handful with you. Most of these aren't really R-oriented, but it's not the language that matters so much as the ability to get the computer to do stuff, no matter which language you have to do that with. So obviously it should be a little bit easier for you to develop your R skills, but since you've got some foundation at all, it's going to be that much easier to go on and learn other languages, to learn processing, JavaScript, Python, whatever else. It becomes a lot easier once you've got some sort of a programming language under your belt. So, some places to check out on YouTube that might give you some inspiration for how to think about programming or stuff that you might make. One really cool speaker is Dylan Beatty. He's a Windows guy. I'm a Linux guy, so it feels a little weird. But he does do a really fun talk. He does actually a bunch of really fun talks. And one to check out would be The Art of Code, where I hope he will inspire you to continue doing some coding. He's also got, this plain text one. This is a good talk on why we like text. FizzBuzz, this is part of, I think The Art of Code is where he talks about his FizzBuzz and his Rockstar programming language. Really fun, entertaining stuff that now will make more sense to you with some coding background. There are a bajillion different YouTube channels with varying levels of quality. I'll show you a couple that I'm subscribed to without necessarily saying that I agree with everything they say, even when there's, this is a good example. So here we have a channel with strong opinions. For example, making a video called Don't Write Comments. I think you should write comments, but I think that we also learn by hearing what people have to say about those sorts of things. So in very minor passing detail with one of you guys, I had a brief conversation about functional programming versus object-oriented programming. There are a lot of different ways to try to do coding, even within the context of one computer programming language. There's not one right way to make things work with R, but people have ideas about sort of approaches, and even if you don't adopt that approach, it still is useful to see how other people are thinking things through. Code Aesthetic, this is one that's good for these sort of opinionated videos that you don't have to adopt, but you can still learn from. Another one that I've found keeps coming up is No Boilerplate. Here, this creator spends a lot more time on sort of the mental aspect of this. So thinking about how his neurodiversity impacts how he approaches code is a useful thing. So he talks a lot about Rust, which I don't code in, but these sort of meta skills about how to think about, balancing your health and well-being against, work, how to get things done, how to meditate. These aren't traditional coding topics, but they are useful. So no boilerplate, not an R channel, but very useful. There are some R channels, like the R, if you look for R, this will type for me. Maybe it won't. There we go. If you look up the R Book Club, sorry, my computer is lagging right now, but if you look for the R Book Club, the R Data Science Book Club, you just search R Book Club, looks like it's just some dance party YouTube channel. Speaking of which, while you're working on your final projects, obnoxious pulsing music is really helpful for coding. So the R for Data Science Book Club, if you search for this, the Data Science Learning Community, this is a good channel. When you see this visualization, this is people spending a lot of time going real deep on R, and it can be really useful to see what they're doing. If you want to go deeper into R, then this is a really good way to do that. You'll also see a lot of YouTube channels about sort of how to get through coding interviews, where they'll talk about another thing that's kind of related to tutorial hell, which is churning through these coding challenges. These coding challenges can be very educational, which is why I include some of them in our class, but you don't want to get hung up on them, right? But this is a good way to kind of fill in gaps in your knowledge. So NeetCode is sort of focused at software engineers, which again might not be necessary for this class, but you'll see a bunch of stuff like this, and it can be helpful, right? So you can go to LeetCode, you can go to, oh, I forget what the one was that I recommended at the beginning, CodeWars. There are a lot of websites like this that are a good way to, get some practice on components of problems, right? Making a big thing is very educational, but making small things is probably what you want to be focusing on at this point in your learning programming career. Another really good programming channel that focuses a little bit more on Python is Arjan Codes, as a professor in the Netherlands. If you kind of go through a few of these and you subscribe, YouTube will start to recommend other stuff to you. Some of the stuff is not great, but if you get a few that are pretty good, that should at least sort of guide the algorithm towards other more useful stuff. StatQuest is maybe more interesting if you're interested in data science type stuff. Nice examples and illustrations of concepts. Not necessarily stuff that you're going to be coding, but, well, I shouldn't say that. Stuff that people definitely code into R, but understanding the concepts behind that is integral, right? It's important to do that also. One that I came across very recently, Adam, I don't know if I'm supposed to pronounce that, but this video from a month ago, A Graph of Wikipedia, was a really interesting video. And when you find these sorts of channels where people are basically just making creative stuff with their coding, and I can't remember any other names off the top of my head, but these sorts of things are good for inspiration. So really good to watch this video on how they mapped out Wikipedia and then try to replicate some aspect of that using R. Another thing, really fun, one of my favorite coding channels is the Coding Train. And here, this guy is a professor at NYU using p5.js, a library within JavaScript, to make a lot of fun visualizations and also to investigate a lot of interesting things, some machine learning stuff, but this nature of code playlist is really cool. Ties in a lot of naturally occurring phenomenon, but in a context where we're modeling it with JavaScript. This is obviously things you can do with R, but now that you know R, it'll be that much easier to understand JavaScript if you do want to learn more JavaScript. In any case, there are a bunch of interesting things on the internet. So explore them, right? Take advantage. And, as you run into problems, as you try and do stuff, talk to each other. Talk to your classmates, reach out to me. You can email me long after the semester's over, and I'm happy to point you in interesting directions or look at your code and help you fix stuff. Stop by my office hours in the fall. I love talking about this stuff. It is great. You'd be doing me a favor by, learning more and coming to talk to me about it. So that is for the future. That's stuff to think about really kind of going forward after a couple weeks from now. In the meantime, what we need to worry about over the next week and a half is the final project. So our deadline is this Sunday night, so I want you in our folder for final project assignments. I want you to go to the final project submission and get me something this Sunday. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be working entirely, but submit something to avoid the late penalty. If you turn something in after the 5th, you're going to start losing points. If you turn something in after the 10th, it's too late for your peers to be able to look at anything. You've lost your chance. So put it into your phone, make sure you're going to do something. Give me something like this, right? So here is one I did a couple years ago. If you give me a GitHub link like this, even if it's not working entirely, you have made a submission. From there, you've got a couple days to get stuff working. So hopefully it works Sunday, but if it's not entirely working, you've at least got it in, and then you've got a few more days to get it functioning before your peers are going to start looking at it and before I'm going to start evaluating it. So on Wednesday, we're going to send out links to everyone's projects. I will put that in a table here, and I will make a script to randomly assign people. So you will be assigned a certain number of people to look at their projects and give a peer evaluation. And that way, everyone will get at least some input from each other. You can go deeper than that. You can give more evaluation than what I assign to you, but we're going to make sure that everyone gets at least some input. So that input is going to be on the peer evaluations end of things. So I'm going to replace this table and we'll say something like Alex is assigned to check out Samir and Mazen and whoever else, right? So you will look for your name here and you'll see whose projects you're going to evaluate, and there will be links there for you to click through to look at. So it'll look, hopefully their project will look something like this. You'll read the README, make sure it makes sense, try and run the code, clone this onto your own computer, and give an evaluation. So the evaluation is going to be at this link. So you click into here. Let me go back so you'll see what it looks like when you click in. You'll say, here's my email. I'm looking at Junior's project. Go to next. And then you're going to have the same template for everyone. So as I say here, this is not you giving a grade. So if you are evaluating Junior's project and you give them all 5s, that's very nice, but that's not going to translate into Junior's guaranteed to get an A. If you give everyone 5s, then I'm just going to discount that. I want to see some variation here, right? So the point of this evaluation is not grades. You are not hurting anyone. You're not helping anyone directly in a grade context. You're helping with feedback. So be harsh, right? Be like, who's the cook? Be like Gordon Ramsay, right? Be a jerk. This is a context where being a jerk is going to be filtered through me, right? So don't be a jerk and just say, I'm going to give everyone 1s, but be critical, be harsh enough that you give some people higher evaluations and lower evaluations for other people. That variation is useful for me to see how you guys think about each other's work. In the end, my hope is just everyone kicks ass and everyone gets A's. That's what I want to see. But within this peer evaluation, I don't want to see everyone gets 5s. I want to see everyone does good work, but then you say, within the good work that I'm seeing my peers give, this one is, really good, and this one's pretty good, but not as good as the others, so I'm going to give that a lower grade. Point is, give different evaluations to different work to reflect the fact that work is different. And don't sweat it. Don't think that you are hurting or helping anyone by giving all 5s or all 1s. Give some genuine feedback here. So the questions we're looking at, these are all kind of subjective. Do you see competence with R? Okay, if they're just giving you very, very little, then strongly disagree. If there's a ton of stuff and it all works and it works fast, awesome. If you're looking at someone's code and you're learning stuff from it, that's great. If you're thinking like, oh, I wish I had put something like that into my code, that's an indication that they're showing some competence with R. And by the way, since your work is on GitHub, you do have the ability to update your work possibly. So maybe you see something that makes someone else's code a lot easier to read and you could use that in your code. You can go back and try and fix your code, and if it works, then push it up to GitHub, and maybe someone else will see your code and give a better evaluation because you're showing more competence with R. Even if you don't change your code, looking through other people's code is a good way to learn, just to see how other people are doing things. Maybe you see something you think, well, I wouldn't do it that way, or you see something you think, wow, I never thought to do it that way. Or you just see, hey, they got the same thing done as me in a different way. Now I just know that there's an alternate path I could take. It's useful, right? So, do we see some competence with R? Subjective, right? But, give me your subjective evaluation of your peers. Does this function with minimal intervention on your part? This is a little bit more objective. So if you clone my project and you try and run it and you get a whole bunch of errors, it's not running with minimal intervention. If there's like a couple typos you have to fix, that's less minimal intervention, right? That's something, but if it's easy to fix and then it works, okay, that's not great, but that's better than it doesn't work at all, right? But what we would like is I can clone your code, hit run, and it just works. If your peers' stuff is doing that and it's doing what it's supposed to do, then strongly agree. Right? This one's a little bit more objective than the others. Is the communication clear and accurate? Again, is it obvious what's going on when you look at the README? Or if someone makes a video, is it clear what they're talking about? Again, a little subjective. Most subjective is how impressed are you with this project? So here, something that might be really impressive to me might not be at all impressive to you. That's fine, right? We should have different numbers for different projects from different perspectives on this. And again, if you just say everyone's terrible, I'm not going to say everyone else is terrible except for you. You get an A and everyone else gets C's. If you just say everyone's terrible, then I'm just going to kind of ignore what you have to say about how impressed you are with everyone. Or if you say everyone's project is the best, that's not helpful information at that point. So again, give some variation. Give different scores to different people. The point is not that you are grading your peers. The point is that you are giving some feedback, and then I'm going to translate that into a grade. And frankly, I'm going to translate it into a friendly grade. So you should be a little less friendly than your instincts tell you to be, just so that we get that variation, so that we can kind of give something to students and say, hey, your project, was fine, but here's some weaknesses, right? Maybe it worked well and you were clear about everything, but maybe it was kind of a simplistic project and not very impressive. That's useful feedback, right? And then some open-ended, is there something you'd like me to tell this student? I accidentally marked this as a required question, so you can just leave a space there if you've got nothing to say. But if there is something you want to communicate, this is a spot to do that. And of course, you are, free to reach out to your classmates and say, hey, I was really impressed with XYZ, and could you tell me more about LMNOP and yada, yada, yada? Talk about your stuff. That's good. That is helpful. And it feels good to have someone else say something nice about you. So by all means, reach out to each other for anything you don't care to keep anonymous. But if there is something that you prefer I say on your behalf, I'm not going to say, such and such student thinks your work is crap. But if you say, okay, this student, they're, blah, 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 I can kind of soften that and go to that student and say, hey, look, here's some things to keep in mind in the future. And then private comments, so something that you want to communicate to me about someone's work, you can use this if necessary. So you do that, you hit submit, and then you go back and you'll do it for a few other people, which you will find on this table here. All right, so with that, we got a few days left to get through this. I am expecting to hear a lot of people reaching out to me for last minute help. Use Discord, ask each other for last minute help. Have I got Discord on here? I don't have Discord installed on this computer right now. But one thing you can do is when you're on Discord, you can share your code with triple backticks. That's this key up on your keyboard right under escape. That'll give you these little things, and then this will be formatted in Discord as code. It makes it just a little bit easier to read, a little easier to copy and paste. But take advantage of Discord. If you're absolutely stuck, if it's like, you know, the 8th at 11:30 p.m., you're not going to reach me because I'm going to be asleep. If you have to, you know, you can try and get what you can out of ChatGPT or Claude or any of these other AI models. Be careful, right? They're not always great, but it might be able to help you get unstuck. But you know, ask stuff on Discord, ask me stuff by email, stop by my last couple of office hours if you can, or if I'm on campus. We only have a couple more of these left. So probably you'll just want to send me a message on Discord or an email, send me some code, I can take a look. But you know, take advantage of your classmates also. A lot of the times the problems you're going to run into is just like a little thing, like a typo. And often just by asking someone, hey, what's wrong with my code, you'll realize, oh, I got a typo here. Turns out it wasn't a big error, right? Or is an easy fix. Just asking often is the first step to actually solving it on your own, even without getting an answer back. But hopefully you ask and you do get an answer also. So again, congrats, you made it through, you did a hard thing, you have set yourself up with, you've gone from 0 to 1, you've set yourself up with the first bit of foundation that you can build on. You can build more R skills, you can build more computer programming skills in other languages, but you've made an accomplishment, and that's worth a pat on the back. Good job. If you've got questions, like I said, let me know. I'm happy to talk to you in the future outside of the context of this class or in the class. But good luck with the rest of your classes. Good luck finishing up the final project, and hopefully I'll talk to you in the future.